Emily Caldwell never imagined her world could implode in a single night. But as she huddled inside her sedan parked outside the mansion she once called home, every searing detail of betrayal pulsed through her mind. Her husband's mistress, poised triumphant and smug, was inside laughing. Emily was pregnant, exhausted, and vulnerable. She could feel her baby's restless stirring, as if sensing danger in the quiet darkness. Little did anyone suspect that beyond this heart-wrenching moment, an unexpected champion, in the form of a steely-eyed judge, would arise. Justice was coming, and with it, a torrent of secrets, revenge, and an unthinkable twist. Emily Caldwell had always believed in the sanctity of marriage. Raised in a modest home in Clearwater, Florida, by parents who celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary the year Emily turned 18, she had grown up steeped in simple traditions. Loyalty was paramount. Sacrifice for family was expected. And when she married Mark Caldwell, a corporate attorney with an infectious laugh and an ability to make her swoon with a single smile, she thought she'd sealed her forever in gold. On the surface, their life glittered like a polished diamond. Mark's career soared as he made partner at Haywood and Bentley, a prestigious law firm in Tampa. Emily, who had a gentle heart and a background in teaching, spent her days volunteering at the local community center, guiding underprivileged youth in reading and mathematics. Their union seemed airtight, complete, with a ring that shimmered on Emily's slender finger. But cracks began to show in the second year of their marriage, first subtle, then unmistakable. Nights grew longer for Mark at the office. He hesitated to look Emily in the eyes at breakfast. When she touched him, it felt like her fingers grazed the shell of a man whose spirit had wandered elsewhere. She prayed the tension was just a rough patch, a test of faith. Yet deep down, a dread whispered that something more sinister was at play. It wasn't just the missed dinners or lukewarm goodbyes. It was the way he'd grown protective of his phone, how he tensed whenever a call or text came through, the abrupt manner in which he'd step outside just to get some fresh air while quietly taking the phone with him. Emily tried to console herself with the idea of new responsibilities as partner, those 12-hour days wearing Mark down. She convinced herself that long hours were a necessary evil of success. But the crack in her heart deepened the day she found a single earring inside Mark's briefcase. A diamond stud, small and tasteful, but definitely not hers. Still, she waited, hoping for a miracle explanation. When none came, and Mark grew more secretive, Emily realized she was facing the unthinkable. There was another woman. The discovery that she was pregnant came on a stormy August evening. Emily, alone in the bathroom, stared in disbelief at the faint pink line on the test. First, she felt shock, then relief, then a pang of fear so strong it twisted her stomach. In a normal world, she would have rushed to Mark, joy dancing in her eyes. Instead, she collapsed onto the cold bathroom floor, tears cascading down her cheeks. How could she bring a child into a crumbling marriage? She spent sleepless nights weighing her options. If Mark was indeed unfaithful, did she have the strength to walk away? Could she raise this baby alone? Each scenario churned her heart. At her first prenatal appointment, she couldn't stop trembling. Dr. Margaret Clifton, a warm obstetrician with curly silver hair, noticed Emily's anxiety. With a comforting touch, Dr. Clifton insisted Emily rest, that stress harmed not only the mother, but the baby too. But it was futile to calm her mind when her home life felt like an active minefield. That evening, as Emily painstakingly cooked Mark's favorite dinner, marinated salmon in lemon butter sauce, a side of creamy risotto, she held a flicker of hope that maybe a romantic meal could rekindle something between them. She planned to share the baby news, imagining Mark's face lighting up with fatherly pride. Yet Mark never showed. Midnight struck the food, cold and stale, and Emily sat in the dark, tears rolling freely. The phone rang past 1 in the morning, and Mark, in a slurred voice, mumbled something about working late and "I'll be home soon." He never arrived. Emily didn't see him until 9 a.m., emerging from a friend's car, reeking of whiskey. She knew with chilling certainty that her life was about to spiral even further. The next day, Mark's phone buzzed relentlessly on the kitchen countertop while he was in the shower. Emily's eyes, sunken from lack of sleep, read the name, flashing on the screen, Leslie Pruitt. Her heart hammered. She'd never heard of Leslie Pruitt in Mark's circle. Curiosity waged war with her moral code. But heartbreak and suspicion won out. With trembling fingers, she unlocked the phone. Mark's passcode was ironically her birthday, and glimpsed the series of texts. They spoke of last night's fun, missing your lips, and brazen love you sign-offs that shattered any illusions. Leslie Pruitt was no casual fling. The messages mentioned extravagant dinners at the Tampa Bay Country Club, covert weekend getaways when your wife thinks you're traveling for business. Emily nearly dropped the phone at the final lines, "I can't wait to see you again tonight. Hurry up and finalize the separation. I'm tired of waiting in the wings." Tears burned Emily's cheeks. She tucked the phone back in place just as Mark's footsteps approached. She confronted him the moment he stepped into the kitchen, hair still damp, expression instantly guarded. She demanded the truth, brandishing the knowledge of Leslie's name like a weapon. Mark froze, mouth parted, searching for the right words. A flush of guilt rose in his cheeks, but what Emily expected to be a groveling apology was instead a proud denial. He gaslighted her, claimed the messages were an inside joke that she was misunderstanding. Emily felt her stomach turn, especially when he blatantly refused to look at her belly. He didn't even notice the softness there, the new life in her womb. She'd never felt more alone. Word of Mark's late nights reached an unlikely confidant, David Kleinfeld, a junior associate at Mark's law firm, who admired Emily for her charitable heart. David had witnessed the suspicious glances exchanged by Mark and a certain paralegal Leslie who came on staff 6 months prior. The tension at the office was thick. Rumors circulated. David, though new, recognized trouble brewing. He approached Emily after a charity event she hosted for foster kids. He found her in the parking lot, eyes rimmed red. Quietly, he asked if everything was okay. Emily, under normal circumstances, would have lied, but something in David's earnest gaze disarmed her. She told him only a fraction of the truth, that Mark had been distant, that she suspected he was involved. David hesitated, then gently mentioned that he often saw Mark and Leslie out for late dinners to discuss cases, but the office gossip suggested otherwise. Emily's heart sank further. David assured her that if she needed help, legal or otherwise, he would do what he could. Though Mark was his boss, David despised the betrayal he saw unfolding. That night, Emily gazed at her reflection in the bedroom mirror. She placed her hand over her belly, feeling the faint stirrings of new life. She realized that the illusions she'd clung to had shattered. Mark was a stranger, and Emily needed to protect herself and her child. On a humid Saturday night, Emily decided to confront Mark once and for all. She had discovered evidence of Mark wiring money to Leslie's private account. The transaction left Emily stunned. He was siphoning their joint assets into someone else's pockets. Confrontation felt inevitable, and her fear dissolved into fury. She could no longer stand by while he gambled her future and their baby's future on a mistress. Yet that night, Emily discovered how irreparably Mark had changed. He was not just defensive, he was cruel. He hurled accusations that Emily was paranoid, emotional, and unstable. In a screaming rage, he dismissed her pregnancy announcement. "I can't deal with your drama right now," he barked. "I never even wanted a kid. This isn't what I signed up for." Every venomous word struck Emily like a hammer. She felt her chest tighten, a hot wave of tears, threatening to collapse her. Without thinking, she stormed upstairs, packed a small bag, some clothes, basic toiletries, a framed ultrasound picture she'd tucked away, and fled the house. She sped away, tears clouding her vision, uncertain of where to go. Under the flickering glow of a streetlight, she parked at the edge of a neighborhood grocery store. Exhaustion crept in, both physical and emotional. She reclined her seat, hugging her stomach. As her unborn child fluttered inside her, Emily made a promise: "I will protect you, no matter what." The Florida heat pressed down, stifling. Still, she fell into a fitful sleep, haunted by the life she left behind. When Emily returned the next morning, hoping to retrieve prenatal vitamins and a few more necessities, she found Leslie Pruitt's sports car parked brazenly in the driveway. It was a sleek, white convertible that shouted vanity. Emily's face flushed in humiliation. Her home, her marriage, her safe space being invaded. Summoning the courage, Emily walked in, only to find the couple, Leslie draped languidly over the couch in Mark's t-shirt, Mark by her side, each holding a cup of coffee as though they were the rightful owners of the place. Leslie looked up, an airy laugh escaping her lips. She surveyed Emily's disheveled clothing, the dark circles beneath her eyes, and unleashed a mocking giggle. "You look tired," she said, a faux concern dripping with condescension. "Maybe you should get some rest." Emily's hand tightened on the doorknob. She stuttered out that she just wanted a few items. Mark barely acknowledged her. Leslie rose, cat-like, and sauntered past Emily, whispering, "We need our privacy now. This is our home." She snickered as she brushed by Emily, making sure to set the old wedding photo of Mark and Emily face down on the mantel. Humiliation burned Emily's cheeks. She felt her baby lurch inside her, as if sensing the maternal distress. Without uttering another word, Emily grabbed the prenatal vitamins, a couple of pairs of socks, and left. The final sound echoing in her ears was Leslie's laugh. It haunted her the rest of the day. In the days that followed, Emily found refuge in her friend Sarah Redwood's guest room. Sarah was a nurse who had known Emily since their college days at Florida State University. When Emily told her about Leslie's intrusion, Mark's behavior, and the heartbreak she was enduring, Sarah's eyes filled with empathy. She ensured Emily had proper prenatal care, hooking her up with supportive doctors and nutrition plans. Their evenings were a mix of tears and quiet companionship. Sarah gave Emily space, but also insisted she speak to an attorney. "You deserve better, Em," she said firmly. "And so does your baby." Though Emily still felt disoriented and numb, she nodded. Somewhere in the swirl of shame and grief, she recognized she had rights. They contacted one of Sarah's acquaintances, a reputable family law attorney named Ava Carmichael. At the first meeting, Ava listened patiently to Emily's story, carefully studying the photographs, text messages, and financial records Emily had saved. Ava's expression grew steely. "You have a strong case," Ava said, pointing to the possibility of alimony, child support, and property division that could leave Mark reeling. "He can't just throw you out. The courts won't allow this kind of behavior." Yet a flicker of hesitation lingered in Emily's eyes. She had never envisioned herself in a legal battle with the father of her child. It felt unnatural, terrifying. But with gentle reassurance from both Sarah and Ava, Emily realized she couldn't shrink from the fight. She needed to secure a stable life for her unborn son or daughter. The day Emily filed the divorce papers was surprisingly sunny, as if mocking the storm raging within her. She watched Ava Carmichael slip the neatly typed documents into a folder. They were delivered to Mark's office at Haywood and Bentley the following afternoon, causing quite a stir. David Kleinfeld texted Emily later that day to share how Mark slammed the door to his office and roared at his secretary. Leslie Pruitt, paralegal, turned mistress, fumed in the hallway, no doubt unnerved by the escalation. Emily felt a pang of guilt, a leftover reflex of the woman she once was gentle, conflict-averse. But as she placed a hand on her belly, that guilt subsided. She was a mother now, and mothers protect their children at any cost. When Mark's response arrived, it was rife with venom. He countered that Emily's emotional instability made her unfit to claim spousal support. He also challenged the paternity of the baby, a shocking move that made Emily nauseous. She realized Mark was out for blood, spurred by Leslie's goading, no doubt. If he could question paternity, he might try to evade child support altogether. At this point, the court date was set. Emily braced herself for battle, while Sarah Redwood and attorney Ava Carmichael vowed to stand by her side. Weeks crawled by, each day weighed down by tension. Emily's belly began to swell more visibly, a testament to the life inside her. She moved in with Sarah, permanently slumbering on a pull-out couch to give Sarah's family more space. She spent afternoons meticulously collecting evidence of Mark's financial contributions, the suspicious wire transfers to Leslie, text messages, phone records that pinpointed Mark's location. At times he claimed to be in the office. David Kleinfeld discreetly fed Emily additional scraps of information, like Mark's expense reports, that revealed dinners and hotel stays for two, all on the firm's card. In the meantime, Leslie brazenly flaunted her status as Mark's girlfriend. She snapped pictures of them at fancy restaurants, posted them on social media, with captions that seemed designed to taunt Emily. "Dinner with my love," read one post. Another, a snapshot of Mark opening her car door, a real gentleman. Lucky girl. It churned Emily's stomach. Despite the anxiety, Emily found brief reprieves in imagining her future child. She pictured reading bedtime stories in a cozy apartment, tucking the baby in every night. She resolved that, no matter how bruised she felt by Mark's betrayal, she would shape a warm, nurturing environment for her son or daughter. This flicker of hope kept her going. At last, the day arrived for the initial hearing, an emergency motion regarding living arrangements and temporary financial support. Emily wore a simple navy dress that gently draped over her growing bump. Ava accompanied her to the courthouse crossing paths with Mark and Leslie in the corridor. Leslie wore a smug grin, dressed in a tight black suit, looking every bit the corporate dominatrix. Mark stood by her with a stiff jaw. Judge Harriet Mulligan presided, an older woman with kind but discerning eyes, known for her no-nonsense approach to family law. She watched intently as Ava presented Emily's evidence of marital misconduct, financial recklessness, and Mark's attempt to force Emily from the marital home. She also highlighted Emily's pregnancy and the risk to mother and child. Mark's attorney, a wiry man named Stephen Atkins, tried to undermine Emily. He claimed Emily was dramatizing the situation, that the finances were misunderstood, and that Mark had every right to end a failing marriage. The mention of paternity concerns made Judge Mulligan's brow furrow. In a measured tone, Judge Mulligan asked about living situations. Emily's face reddened as she explained how she'd been forced to stay in her car one night, then rely on her friend's generosity. She kept her composure, but even so, tears threatened as she recounted the humiliation of being laughed at by Mark's mistress in her own home. After a moment's reflection, the judge declared Emily had grounds to return to the marital residence. In the interim, Mark was ordered to pay temporary spousal support and half of any pregnancy-related medical bills until a final determination. Leslie fumed, her face contorted with anger. Mark's jaw clenched so tight a vein throbbed at his temple. Outside the courtroom, Emily caught a glimpse of Leslie whispering harshly in Mark's ear. But it was Mark who stormed toward her, hissing, "You'll regret this." Emily trembled, but the presence of Ava by her side gave her the courage to ignore him. Emily tried to return to the marital home as the judge allowed, but the hostility there was palpable. Mark vacillated between ignoring her and launching verbal tirades. It was no environment for a pregnant woman. Emily, with Ava's guidance, filed a restraining order after one particularly vicious argument in which Mark threatened to sabotage her in court. Leslie sneered at the restraining order, ridiculing it on social media with cryptic posts about weak women who can't handle the heat. She posted smiling selfies of her and Mark at new restaurants, on the deck of a friend's yacht, clinking glasses of champagne, while Emily was stuck sorting through the aftermath. As the pregnancy progressed, Emily's nights were fraught with nightmares. She'd dream of Mark and Leslie gleefully pushing her out of her home, locking the door behind them. Waking up soaked in sweat, she would cradle her belly, whispering to her baby that everything would be okay. Amid the darkness, David Kleinfeld's discreet updates from the office offered rays of optimism. He quietly leaked that Mark was under scrutiny for unethical practices triggered by Emily's allegations. Haywood and Bentley despised negative press. If Mark didn't handle his personal affairs carefully, the partnership could be in jeopardy. Leslie might have been fueling his ego, but to the world outside, Mark's behavior was destroying his reputation. One afternoon, rummaging through old files in the attic, Emily stumbled upon a dusty box that belonged to Mark. Inside were letters and documents from well before their marriage. Sifting through them, her stomach flipped. There were correspondences from Mark's ex-girlfriend Naomi. Naomi's letters revealed a pattern. Mark had left Naomi after discovering she was pregnant. He refused to accept responsibility and apparently pressured Naomi into an abortion. The heartbreak in her words was palpable, each sentence tinged with despair. The final letter stated, "You always said you never wanted children. Is that why you turned so cold? Or is there someone else?" Emily's hands shook. She realized that Mark's cruelty was not new. He'd walked this dark road before. A wave of sickness overwhelmed her, both from the pregnancy and from this revelation that Mark had a pattern of discarding women who carried his child. She immediately showed the letters to Ava, who recognized a crucial piece of the puzzle. If Mark was trying to deny paternity or refuse support, the existence of a prior pregnancy could speak volumes to his character in court. Ava's eyes narrowed with determination. This might change everything, she whispered. Leslie Pruitt, for all her smugness, carried secrets of her own. With David Kleinfeld's help, Emily learned that Leslie had previously been involved with a high-ranking executive at a different law firm who lost his job after allegations of impropriety with staff. There were rumors that Leslie, hungry for power and prestige, systematically manipulated the men she worked for, seducing them to climb the corporate ladder. Digging deeper, Emily discovered that Leslie had a trail of relationships that ended in scandal, each time walking away with sizable financial concessions from the men. She appeared adept at infiltration, winning trust, gaining financial advantage, and then moving on to her next conquest. If Mark assumed Leslie's affection was genuine, perhaps he was more blind than Emily ever realized. As the final court date approached, Emily braced herself. She clung to the knowledge that she had compiled compelling evidence of Mark's marital misconduct and financial wrongdoing, while also believing that Leslie's skeletons might undermine their joint credibility. Yet a flicker of fear remained. What if Mark and Leslie found a way to spin the story? What if the judge believed Mark's claims about Emily's instability? A quiet terror gnawed at her soul. She was fighting not only for justice, but for her baby's future. Tension escalated one humid afternoon when Emily felt sudden shooting pains in her abdomen. Alarmed, Sarah rushed her to the emergency room. Breathless and drenched in sweat, Emily feared the worst. Dr. Clifton performed an ultrasound and discovered that while the baby was fine, Emily's blood pressure was dangerously high, likely from stress. "I can't emphasize this enough," Dr. Clifton said, her voice serious. "You need to limit the emotional strain. Stress can lead to complications. If possible, find a safer, calmer environment." Emily was too overwhelmed to speak. Sarah squeezed her hand. She had no intention of letting Emily go back into that toxic environment with Mark. Sarah insisted Emily stay with her until the court finalized living arrangements. That night, as Emily lay in the small guest room, she felt something tugging at her heart. A fierce maternal protectiveness overcame her, along with a clarity of purpose. She realized that if she had to stand up to Mark and Leslie, to their lawyers, to the entire world, she would do it. She would do it for her unborn child. The final hearing dawned, with a sky streaked in pink and gold. Emily wore a flowing maternity dress, determined to stand tall. Sarah Redwood accompanied her for moral support, while Ava Carmichael carried a thick briefcase of documents. Mark arrived first, looking tense, flanked by Stephen Atkins and Leslie Pruitt. Leslie's presence was unusual. She wasn't just a mistress, but a witness, possibly there to defend her role or smear Emily's character. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harriet Mulligan took her seat with measured calm. She glanced over the docket, then invited both parties to present. Ava began weaving a narrative that showcased Emily's tribulations, the betrayal, the forced eviction, the nights spent in her car, the heartbreak of a mistress living in her home, and Mark's blatant financial deceptions. She laid out text messages, bank statements, even the private letters from Mark's past. David Kleinfeld, under oath, testified about Mark's unethical expense claims at the firm. It painted a damning portrait of a man who had methodically and cruelly abandoned his pregnant wife for a mistress. Stephen Atkins tried to hit back hard. He accused Emily of milking the situation for financial gain. He pointed out that the pregnancy wasn't confirmed by Mark, dredging up Mark's paternity doubts. But Ava was ready, producing medical records lab tests that matched Mark's DNA from a routine paternity test Emily had insisted upon in her pregnancy exam. Finally, the judge asked about Leslie Pruitt's role. Leslie approached with a confident sway, wearing a tailored navy blazer. She attempted to paint Emily as volatile and unhinged. "She threatened us," Leslie claimed. "She was jealous and, quite frankly, paranoid. Mark and we're just two people who fell in love." She batted her eyelashes at the judge, but Ava pounced with evidence of Leslie's pattern, a string of prior lawsuits and hush money deals from past relationships with powerful men. Leslie's face lost color as Ava methodically read through documented accounts with names redacted but details intact. Leslie's protests stuttered as the judge's gaze hardened. When Mark took the stand, he tried to deflect blame. He insisted that his marriage to Emily had been failing, that he found companionship in Leslie. Yet as Ava grilled him about the night Emily slept in her car while Leslie occupied her bed, Mark had no justification. Under the judge's cool scrutiny, Mark fumbled. The more he spoke, the clearer it became that he had placed his mistress's comfort over his pregnant wife's safety. 2 tense days later, in a hushed courtroom, Judge Harriet Mulligan delivered her decision. She spoke calmly, but her words reverberated across every wooden bench. Dissolution of marriage approved based on irreconcilable differences with clear evidence of spousal misconduct on Mark's part. 2. Division of assets. The marital home was to be awarded to Emily. Considering Mark's financial manipulations and attempt to evict a pregnant spouse, he forfeited the lion's share of the property settlement. The judge granted Emily not only the house, but also a substantial portion of Mark's liquid assets to ensure future stability for mother and child. 3. Alimony and child support. Mark was ordered to pay monthly spousal support until Emily could secure stable employment post-birth. Once the baby was born, mandatory child support would be set at a higher than usual rate, factoring in Mark's considerable income as a partner-level attorney. The judge admonished Mark for questioning paternity after the results had proven the child was his. 4. Restraining order upheld. Mark was restricted from harassing Emily, with any violation resulting in steep legal consequences. 5. Legal fees. Mark was ordered to cover Emily's attorney fees, given the evidence of his financial misconduct. As the words left the judge's mouth, Emily felt a mixture of relief and disbelief wash over her. She swore she heard Leslie let out a quiet gasp. The mistress, who had once sneered at Emily, who'd laughed while Emily slept in her car, now stood stone-faced. In that moment, as the gavel struck, Emily realized she was free from the chains that bound her. Justice had been served. The corridor outside the courtroom buzzed with murmured chatter. Mark, looking stunned and humiliated, brushed past Emily without a word. Leslie was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps she had fled once the verdict became clear. Meanwhile, Sarah Redwood embraced Emily tightly, both crying tears of joy and relief. Ava Carmichael, triumphant, shook Emily's hand. "You deserve all of this," she said with an encouraging smile. "Now you can start fresh." David Kleinfeld approached quietly, offering his congratulations. He subtly hinted that Mark's standing at the firm was precarious. Senior leadership can't ignore this scandal. They'll likely force him to resign. Emily nodded, feeling a pang of sadness at how drastically Mark's life had unraveled. Yet she couldn't dredge up pity for him. His choices had led to this moment. He'd broken their vows, driven her into homelessness, and endangered her pregnancy. Consequences were inevitable. That afternoon, returning to Sarah's place, Emily let out a breath she felt she'd been holding for months. She was no longer bound by fear. The days following the ruling brought an unexpected peace. Though Emily occasionally glanced over her shoulder, half expecting Mark or Leslie to appear, they were conspicuously silent. Mark had retreated into the shadows, presumably dealing with job woes and tarnished reputation. Leslie's social media posts vanished, her account locked. Gossip around town suggested they were done. Leslie had apparently moved on her fling with Mark, no longer fruitful. Emily's focus shifted to preparing for motherhood. She visited baby stores with Sarah, selecting soft blankets and onesies. She accepted that the house was now hers, but it felt haunted by memories she was eager to replace with new beginnings. Still, she decided to sell it eventually and move closer to Sarah, wanting a true, fresh start. The profits would sustain her comfortably for years, thanks to the generous settlement. One afternoon, Dr. Clifton confirmed that Emily was expecting a baby girl. Tears of joy slipped down Emily's cheeks as she heard the steady thump-thump of a healthy heartbeat. She envisioned a new chapter brimming with possibility. The quiet was upended by a surprising phone call. Naomi, the ex-girlfriend from Mark's past, whose letters Emily had found, reached out. She was hesitant, explaining that she saw news coverage of the ruling and recognized Mark's name. They met at a small cafe. Naomi was older than Emily had expected, her eyes etched with lines of past hurt. She recounted her heartbreak, how Mark had callously dismissed her pregnancy years ago. She had since rebuilt her life, but the trauma lingered. The conversation offered Emily closure, a chance to see how Mark's pattern of mistreatment harmed other women before her. Naomi expressed relief that Emily had exposed him, ensuring that Mark's power to hurt was diminished. A sense of sisterhood formed between them, two women who overcame Mark's betrayal in different eras. As Emily's due date approached, she finally stepped into her future without fear. She attended parenting classes, practiced breathing exercises, and focused on self-love. With Sarah Redwood's unwavering support, Emily found a sense of empowerment she never thought possible. She finished sorting out the marital home's paperwork and, with Ava's guidance, listed it on the market. The baby arrived on a calm, clear evening in early May. Emily named her daughter Lily Elizabeth Caldwell in honor of her mother and grandmother. Holding Lily for the first time, Emily felt a rush of unconditional love. She imagined the difficulties Lily might face someday, but vowed she would never lack the guidance or support of a devoted parent. While Mark was informed of Lily's birth through a legal notice, he made no attempt to contact Emily. She considered how she would answer Lily's questions about her father one day. Perhaps Lily would choose to meet him eventually, or perhaps not. For now, Emily focused on each sweet moment with her newborn. Months later, Emily, with Lily in a stroller, ventured to the Tampa Farmers Market. The air was warm with the scent of fresh produce and baked goods. Passers-by smiled at Lily, who cooed and waved her tiny fists. Sarah Redwood teased Emily about meeting new people, gently suggesting she'd spent enough time grieving the past. Fate intervened in the form of a kind veterinarian named Jonathan Martin, manning a pet adoption stall. He complimented Lily's bright eyes and offered Emily a flyer about a local animal rescue program. They chatted amiably, discovering a shared passion for giving back. Emily felt an unfamiliar flutter in her chest, a timid but welcome sign that she was ready to let positivity in again. The hush of mourning was replaced by the chorus of new beginnings. Emily had found her voice, her independence, and a life she could shape into something extraordinary for her and Lily. Over time, Emily learned to weave her pain into strength. She took up part-time tutoring, helping high school students with math and reading. She found immense satisfaction in guiding them, witnessing their transformation as they regained confidence, much like she had found her own. She kept in touch with David Kleinfeld, who informed her that Mark had quietly stepped down from the firm and moved out of state. Leslie Pruitt was rumored to be working at another law office, but her name was tarnished. Emily made a conscious choice not to dwell on them. She refused to let bitterness anchor her. Instead, she poured love into Lily, who grew more curious and bright each day. The settlement money remained a safety net, but Emily refused to rely on it too heavily. She wanted to earn her own way, teach Lily the value of perseverance. On weekends, she volunteered at the same community center where she'd once taught children. The kids would flock around Lily, fascinated by her giggles and clumsy attempts to crawl. In their laughter, Emily heard hope. The heartbreak that once haunted her had given way to gratitude for second chances. It was nearly a year after the divorce when Emily sold the old marital home. Signing the final papers felt like releasing a heavy weight she'd carried. She placed the proceeds in a trust for Lily's future, determined that her daughter would have the opportunities to chase her dreams. Before handing over the keys, Emily walked through each room. She remembered the illusions of happiness she once cherished there. She let the memories wash over her, from the day she and Mark moved in with newlywed excitement to the nights she cried alone, suspecting his affair. She stood in the living room where Leslie had laughed at her. The echoes of that cruel laugh felt distant now, like a fading nightmare. She murmured a silent goodbye to her past, stepping outside and locking the door behind her. 6 months later, Emily and Lily were thriving in a cozy condo closer to Sarah Redwood's house. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating the bright pastel walls. A short walk away lay a park lined with oak trees, where Emily would push Lily's stroller, savoring every precious second of her daughter's early childhood. Word spread of Emily's success in tutoring. She expanded her services eventually, partnering with the community center to establish a literacy program. She earned enough to provide comfortably for Lily without dipping heavily into her settlement funds. One autumn evening, while reading Lily a bedtime story, Emily felt tears of happiness slip down her cheeks. The house smelled of lavender and baby powder, so different from the stale tension she once endured. Here, there was peace. Several months later, a letter arrived in Emily's mailbox, sporting a return address she didn't recognize. She opened it cautiously, heart pounding. To her shock, it was a short note from Mark. He wrote that he'd moved to Atlanta, that he'd taken anger management classes, and he was trying to become a better person. He asked if Emily would ever let him see Lily. Emily's hands trembled. Old anger flared. He'd never reached out before. Now that Lily was nearly 2, he wanted to know her. She understood. Fatherhood was a right, but also a responsibility he'd never shown interest in. Unsure how to respond, she turned to Ava Carmichael for legal counsel. Ava reminded her that the final decree allowed Mark visitation contingent on him fulfilling child support and demonstrating stable, appropriate behavior. He had paid child support monthly, though never once attempted direct contact until now. Emily decided she'd respond thoughtfully with Lily's best interests at heart. She realized this new chapter 2 would require courage. Each day that passed after Mark's letter hammered home a point. Emily was no longer the timid, anxious wife who'd once believed she needed Mark's love to survive. She was a woman who had conquered heartbreak, a mother who fiercely protected her child, and a soul who found renewal after unimaginable betrayal. Stories of her victory circulated among her friends and neighbors. Some viewed her as an inspiration, a testament to how adversity can reveal hidden reserves of power. Others who had known Mark felt a mixture of sympathy and awe at how drastically he'd fallen. In quiet moments, Emily reflected on the series of events that led here. A once devoted wife, forced to sleep in her car while pregnant, humiliated by a mistress in her own living room, yet in the end, she was handed everything that truly mattered: safety, dignity, and a future for her child. Judge Mulligan's verdict was more than a legal triumph. It was a moral victory that affirmed Emily's worth. Spring rolled in with vivid flowers, and Lily turned 2. A small party brought together Sarah Redwood, David Kleinfeld, Ava Carmichael, and other supporters who'd formed a surrogate family around Emily. They celebrated Lily with laughter and gifts, toy blocks, picture books, and stuffed animals. The air was filled with love, a stark contrast to the darkness that once overshadowed Emily's life. After everyone left, Emily sat with Lily in her lap, unwrapping a final present, a new baby book to record Lily's memories and achievements. Emily thought back to the first ultrasound photo, how uncertain her life felt then. Now, each milestone Lily reached brought joy beyond measure. Before bed, Emily found herself gazing at Lily's sleeping face. A fierce sense of purpose radiated through her. She tucked the baby blanket around Lily and whispered softly, "We made it. No one can ever take this away." As spring melted into early summer, Emily felt a new current rising within her, not just survival, but purpose. Her daughter Lily had become her greatest muse, her anchor and her fire. Yet something deeper stirred too, a need to give back, to reach women, still trapped in the shadows where she once lived. Every evening, once Lily was asleep, Emily curled up with a worn leather-bound journal and poured her story onto its pages. She chronicled the moments of terror, the humiliation of sleeping in her car, the cold cruelty in Mark's eyes, and the warmth of the courtroom gavel falling in her favor. But she also wrote of healing, of Sarah's kindness, Ava's legal brilliance, and the strangers who became sisters in solidarity. Writing became therapy. Then it became revelation. Eventually, Emily shared a chapter of her journal anonymously at a women's support forum online. The response was overwhelming. Women from across the country messaged her, thanking her for speaking truth, for making them feel seen. Some were on the brink of leaving abusive relationships, others had already fled, but were struggling to rebuild. Emily's inbox flooded with gratitude questions and heartbreaking confessions. It didn't stop there. Encouraged by Sarah and Ava, she accepted an invitation to speak at a small seminar hosted by a local domestic violence shelter. Clutching trembling notes, Emily stood before a room of 30 women, her voice shaking as she told her truth. She didn't dramatize. She didn't embellish. She simply spoke. And when she finished, the room was silent. Then slowly, one by one, the women rose and clapped. Some wept. One woman embraced her tightly and whispered, "You gave me the courage I didn't know I had." That moment changed everything. Emily began speaking regularly at churches, schools, libraries, and online webinars. Her story evolved into a message of not just surviving, but rising. She talked about legal rights, financial independence, motherhood, and the long, painful path to self-worth. She offered real strategies and compassionate counsel, always grounded in lived truth. Soon, Ava introduced Emily to several nonprofit organizers, and together they began laying the foundation for something bigger, a formal support network for women navigating high-conflict divorces, especially those with children and limited resources. Emily wanted to create a space where no woman felt alone, where legal aid counseling and emergency housing could be accessible without judgment. She named the initiative Second Light because, as she once wrote in her journal, even after the darkest night, there's always a second sunrise if you choose to walk toward it. Her days were full, raising Lily fielding calls, attending meetings, and planning her nonprofit's next steps. But for the first time in years, Emily wasn't just reacting to life. She was shaping it. She had gone from broken-hearted wife to warrior advocate. The future, once a fog of fear, now gleamed with clarity, and Emily was ready to lead others into the light. A golden summer morning greeted Emily as she buckled Lily into her car seat. The sky above Tampa was cloudless, and the salty breeze hinted at a perfect day. They were headed to one of Emily's favorite childhood spots, a quiet beach tucked away from tourists where the ocean hummed like a lullaby and the sand felt like velvet underfoot. Sarah Redwood joined them, bringing along a picnic basket filled with fruit sandwiches and iced lemonade. She'd become more than just a friend. She was family auntie, guardian angel, and co-conspirator in every joyful moment of Lily's life. The three of them settled into a soft patch of sand, close enough to the water for Lily to toddle between their towels and the foamy shoreline. Lily squealed with delight, her chubby legs kicking as she chased after bubbles that Sarah blew gently into the air. Her laughter rang out over the waves, pure and untamed. Emily watched with awe, her heart full in a way she never thought possible. The journey to this moment had been long and agonizing, marked by nights in her car legal battles and a betrayal that had nearly shattered her. But here she was alive, thriving, and basking in the glow of a new chapter. Emily waded into the surf and scooped Lily into her arms, twirling her gently in the warm shallows. Water droplets glistened on Lily's curls, and she squealed with glee. Emily held her tight, whispering, "You're everything I fought for." Back on the shore, Sarah watched them with a quiet smile. "You know," she said as Emily joined her under the umbrella, "I've never seen you look more at peace." Emily nodded. "It's strange. After everything that's happened, I still sometimes feel the echo of that pain. But when I look at her, it's like the past melts away." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the ocean. Then Sarah added, "Have you thought about what you'll tell her one day about Mark?" Emily exhaled slowly. "I have. And I know I'll have to answer her questions when she's older. I'll be honest, but age-appropriate. I'll let her know she was always wanted and always loved. That's what matters." As Lily fell asleep later in the afternoon, nestled in Emily's lap beneath a wide sun hat, Emily watched the horizon. She thought about Mark, about the choices he'd made and the life he'd lost. She didn't hate him anymore. In truth, she barely thought of him. He had missed these moments, the belly laughs, the sleepy cuddles, the first steps on soft sand. But Emily hadn't missed a thing. In that quiet, golden stretch of day, she finally understood what it meant to feel whole. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had rebuilt her life from the ground up, one choice, one truth, one unshakable bond at a time. She pressed a kiss to Lily's forehead and whispered again, "We're going to be just fine." That evening, the salty breeze still clung to Emily's hair as she settled Lily into her crib. The child's cheeks were rosy from sun and laughter, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythmic peace. Emily lingered by the crib, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead before quietly backing out of the room. The nightlight cast a warm amber glow across the nursery walls, adorned with soft watercolor paintings of animals and flowers. A gentle hush blanketed the condo, the kind that only came after a day well lived. Emily walked barefoot to the small balcony just off her living room, her favorite evening ritual. The air was warm but not stifling, and the sky over Tampa shimmered with stars. She wrapped a light shawl around her shoulders and sipped herbal tea, her thoughts meandering like the breeze that rustled the potted basil and lavender near her feet. From her perch, the city stretched before her, bustling in the distance, but quiet here on her little street. She thought about how different her life looked from the woman she was not long ago, the one who had cried herself to sleep, in a car parked under a street lamp, heartbroken and scared for her unborn child. How far she'd come. Emily's gaze drifted to the framed ultrasound photo on the wall inside. That grainy image of Lily had once been her only beacon in the darkness. Now, Lily was flesh and laughter, tiny footsteps echoing across the condo floor, gummy smiles and endless questions waiting to be asked. Every night, Emily found herself in awe of how love could survive, how it could take root even in devastation and bloom into something lasting. Still, there were nights when the past crept in like a draft under the door. She would wake from dreams where she was back in that cold house, Mark's voice rising in cruel dismissals, Leslie's laugh bouncing off the walls. But in the next breath, she'd feel the weight of Lily in her arms, smell the scent of baby powder and chamomile, and know she was no longer trapped. She had earned her freedom through pain, through grit, through the unwavering will to protect her child. She rose from the chair and walked slowly through the condo. The living room, once a blank slate, now pulsed with life shelves, stacked with children's books, a handmade growth chart against the wall, a worn rocking chair that had already held countless bedtime stories. Everything here, even the imperfections, told a story of resilience. As she passed Lily's room again, Emily peeked inside. Her daughter's fingers twitched in sleep, a soft smile still playing on her lips. Emily stood in the doorway, her heart swelling with both pride and purpose. She didn't need a mansion or luxury cars. Her home wasn't built of marble or glass. It was built with love, truth, and second chances. And as she gently shut the nursery door, she whispered to herself, this is the life I was meant to live. Emily's journey, from abandoned wife to empowered mother, is a testament that even in the darkest circumstances, hope can bloom. She confronted a brutal betrayal, slept in her car, while carrying a new life, and endured the cruelty of a mistress's mocking laughter. Yet with unyielding courage and the steadfast support of friends, she triumphed in a courtroom showdown that handed her everything she deserved: freedom, security, and the precious gift of a fresh start. Let her story remind us all, no matter how dire the betrayal or how vast the despair, justice and renewal are possible, with the right help, determination, and the love of those who truly care. If you found inspiration in Emily's resilience, remember to hit that like button, share this story with someone who might need hope, and subscribe for more tales of survival and triumph. Thank you for listening, and never stop believing in your own strength.